Hi, I'm Kyle Cohan, the owner of Wing Zone. We're proud to be associated with the Pat Dooley Show. Check us out at wingzone.com or come see us downtown on University Avenue.
Hey, welcome to the latest Pat Dooley Show. This is the Halloween edition, of course, and I'm dressed as Dr. Football. We'll get to Dr. Football's email bag later, as well as a list where we'll talk about the 5 things I almost came dressed as. But right now we're going to talk about the Mississippi State game and, of course, to look at the Georgia game. Florida playing in Starkville. I got to tell you, it was a nice crowd there. They were loud. They were clacking those cowbells. They don't really, bells are supposed to ring. These don't ring. They more clack, 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 clack. And I don't care if I ever hear another one, and won't have to for another 5 years. That's the good thing about it. Of course, everybody's talking about the Gators' red zone issues, and they were awful. They were not good in the red zone. Tim Tebow, uncharacteristically, throwing a couple of pick sixes. One of them, of course, not his fault. The arm got hit when he was getting ready to get rid of the ball. I questioned the call. You're up with 4.5 minutes to go. The game's secured. In my opinion, you just run it and punt it if you have to. But, hey, they're the coaches, and I tend to acquiesce to them and give them a pass because they have won 2 more national championships than I have. But Florida is going to work on this stuff. I think that's what everybody has to understand. It's not like the coaches don't see this. It's not like they're sitting there going, no, we're doing great in the red zone. No, we're having no problems with that. They understand it. There's a combination of reasons, I think. You can argue that Dan Mullen leaving has hurt them a little bit, but I looked at their offense over there, and it wasn't very good. You can argue that the Percy Harvin factor certainly is a factor, but the thing is, Dan Mullen and Percy Harvin aren't coming back. I think some fans, I've gotten this email, we need to bring Mullen back and fire Adazio. I'm like, he's not coming back. He's got a head coaching job. They're working on it, and they're going to get it figured out. Hopefully, if you're a Gator fan, it's going to be this week when they go to Jacksonville and, of course, play Georgia. Georgia is a team that ranks last in a lot of categories in the SEC. One of them is pass defense. They're not very good. They made Jonathan Crumpton look like Jonathan Unitas when they played Tennessee. So we'll see if Florida can take advantage of that. I mean, Georgia does have a little bit of talent on offense. A.J. Green's, I think, the best receiver in the league. And the reason I say that over Julio Jones is that Julio Jones can get shut out in a game. A.J. Green doesn't get shut out. And he's an amazing athlete, and they love to throw that little lob pass, kind of like Greg Carr, but with a stronger version of Greg Carr, because he'll catch other passes, and that's all Greg Carr ever caught at FSU. So we'll see how Florida defends that. My prediction is that if Florida doesn't make mistakes in terms of turnovers, there's no chance for Georgia. But if they make a couple and let them in the game, get the crowd excited, half the crowd excited at least, Georgia's got a chance to win the game. This is a huge game, huge day for the Gators, because not only do they, obviously you got Florida-Georgia and you want to beat your rival, but if they win and Tennessee beats South Carolina that night, Florida's won the East. It's over. There's no race anymore. That's pretty amazing if you can win it that early, and we'll see if that does happen as well. All right, let's go look at the 3 things I learned this weekend. All right, the 3 things I learned this weekend. Number 1, Dan Mullen has rallied the troops. I've not seen Starkville like that. And again, I've only been there 3 times, but that was pretty amazing to me, how loud it was, how excited they were. They were literally cheering made field goals like they just won the game. They were cheering 2-yard gains. I mean, these people they're hungry for a winner. And I think one thing that would tell you this is that at one point during the game they had a question, like a poll question, and the question was, what was Mississippi State's biggest athletic achievement ever? One of them was the 96 Final Four basketball team. One of them was the College World Series team that finished 3rd. And one of them was a team that made it to the SEC championship game. All 3 of them were losses. That was their biggest achievement. They want to win so bad, and I think Dan Mullen's gone about things the right way in terms of getting people fired up and getting people excited. He just needs a quarterback. Right now he doesn't have one. Number 2, college overtime is still the best thing in sports. I love it. It's my favorite thing in sports. If I'm flipping around TV and Hawaii's playing Utah and there's a chance at overtime, I'm staying on that game because I want to see overtime. I think it's hilarious to hear all these people that criticize it. It's pure. Both teams get a chance. The NFL is a joke. But the great thing about it was sitting in the press box on Saturday night up in Starkville, and Clemson and Miami are going to overtime. And all the boys got around the TV to watch it, all the media boys. And it was just exciting because at any moment can be the play that wins it or loses it for one team or the other. The number 3 thing, Lane Kiffin should not be coaching this week. I think Mike Sly blew it on this. I've let him know that you certainly, when you've got a coach saying that not only is questioning the authority of Mike Sly, or if you want to say the seriousness of getting a letter of reprimand, he's questioning whether there's a conspiracy going on in the SEC to keep Florida and Alabama unbeaten. I mean, you got to suspend that guy for that. It's not like this is the first stupid thing he said. And oh yeah, by the way, Lane Kiffin, even if they called a penalty on Terrence Cody then, it would have been Alabama ball. You might try studying the rules. How you pass the NCAA coaches test is beyond me. I have no clue. Anyway, that's going to do it for 3 things I learned this weekend. We'll be right back with our special guest, Florida quarterback Tim Tebow.
The Pat Dooley Show, brought to you by Wing Zone, locally owned and operated, featuring 15 award-winning flavors. Count on Wing Zone for all of your tailgating needs. Call or order online at wingzone.com. Call for daily lunch specials. Ask about our 2 for $12 special.
All right, welcome back to the latest edition of the Pat Dooley Show. I'm joined by my special guest, Tim Tebow, who is wearing a Norm Carlson costume. That's pretty good, Tim. I like that.
I'm flattered.
Norm Carlson, of course, the longtime sports information director at the University of Florida, and you're just kind of known as a historian. Is that an official title now?
That's an official title, yes. I retired in sports information in 2002, and Jeremy said, stay around as a historian. I said, hey, gets me out of the house.
Yeah, it does. And, of course, if you have any questions about Gator football in the past, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I call him and he bails me out, or informs me that I'm totally wrong, which happens often as well. Yes. Now, your first Florida-Georgia game was what year?
1952. I was a freshman at Florida, and I went to the game in Jacksonville. I didn't even know what the Florida-Georgia game was about.
Right.
They were favored. They were 3-0 leading the conference. They had Zeke Bratowski, the leading passer in the nation, Harry Babcock, a great receiver, and a little linebacker of ours got in a fight with Babcock on the first series. Both got thrown out of the game. Of course, we didn't miss our
nice move.
We didn't miss our linebacker, and I think Bratowski was like 7 for 19 with 3 interceptions, less than 100 yards. And we beat them 30-0.
So that got you hooked, right?
Oh, I loved it. I thought this is the way it's supposed to be against Georgia.
Well, as you found out in the 70s and 80s, it was not.
It wasn't how it was supposed to be.
And is there one game that stands out to you? I mean, there's been certainly a lot of success the last 19 years, but for Florida. But is there one game that you go, that's my favorite Florida-Georgia game?
My favorite Florida-Georgia game was the 1993 game, when that horrible weather like 1968 was, rain and mud all over the field, and you wondered whether you're even going to get to play. And that was the game where Eric Rhett had 41 carries for 183 yards, 2 touchdowns. Judd Davis, with all that mud and rain, kicked 4 field goals, 4 out of 4. And the second half, Steve decided that we were starting to get in trouble, and we just needed to control the ball. And Rhett carried it 14 plays out of 21 on a drive, and scored.
Remember that, yep.
It was 23-20 at the half. Scored, and we wound up with Zaire throwing passes in the end zone. I was standing at the back of that end zone, and I saw that ball coming out. I said, "Oh my gosh, he's open!" On that final play, and he threw it a little low.
He did,
and he couldn't pick it up.
And did you see Anthony calling the timeout?
I didn't see it, but I was down there when it happened, but I didn't know what happened. And all of a sudden, I looked around and it was called back.
Certainly one of the more memorable ones, and of course, it's still befuddling to me how Judd Davis is not in the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame, but you're in it.
Well, are you comparing?
I'm comparing you to Judd Davis.
Compare me to administrators.
But Judd, he told me for my book that every time he kicked it, a big splash of mud went across Shane Edge's face because he was trying to hit it like a golf ball and hit down on it. And he kept saying, "Man, I'm so sorry." He goes, "As long as you keep making them, you can splatter me all you want."
Oh yeah, well, Judd's a great golfer, so that was a good way to do it.
Let's talk about some of the other games. One of the games that I'm sure wasn't a great memory for you, 1966, Steve Spurrier's Heisman year, and they just dominated him. Lynn Hughes, I think it was, had the pick 6, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm asking him because I'm never sure.
Yeah, and they ran the ball against us, and we could not block Bill Stanfield.
Right.
He came off the edge, and nobody could block him, and he just made Steve's life miserable. They could run the ball, and it was a tough defeat.
It was, and it's funny because 2 years later was even a worse one, 51-0. I sat through the entire game because my dad kept saying, "Let's see if they score." Well, they didn't, Dad, and I think I got a cold from that game. But Bill Stanfield told me at halftime that the Georgia players were sneaking bourbon onto the bench to drink bourbon in cups.
Well, it helped them, I'll tell you that. I don't know what must not have been drinking that day.
84 had to be a big one for you. It had to be a fun one.
Yeah, Kerwin and crew, and Neil Anderson, that was a wonderful win for the Gators, and I guess the most dominant game up to that time in modern times in our series with Georgia. I mean, we just totally dominated the game, 27-0, tremendous win.
Yeah, it was, and of course the Belden to Teal is one of those. I think it's in the top 10 plays in Florida history.
Absolutely.
When you get to the 90s, though, we all know everything changed when Steve Spurrier came to town. And you are obviously very close with Steve, and you've had conversations with him since, before, during. Was there anything that you saw in Steve before that first game in 90 that you said, this is going to change, this is going to be different?
When I saw it is when Steve first got here in the spring of 1990. And he was telling people, he was telling me, you know, there's two things. I followed the Gators while I was playing the pros. There's two things that has to happen. One, we have to start beating Georgia. We can't be a serious SEC contender unless we beat Georgia.
Right.
And two, all these excuses that our players have and our fans have about we can't beat Auburn and Georgia back to back, we can't, you know, Jacksonville, blah blah blah. He said that has to stop. And he started working on that then. He started with the players, the 90 players. He started really with the fans in his public appearances and so forth. That you can't have excuses for not beating them. And so I really felt good about the Georgia series starting right then. And then of course we had a much better football team than Georgia had in 1990 and got it off to a great start. But he firmly believed we had every advantage. It's the Gator Bowl. They have to take a plane. We ride a bus. Blah blah blah. And he was right.
He was right, and of course he won 11 of 12.
11 of 12.
Ron Zook won 2 of 3, and probably wouldn't have lost the third one if he hadn't gotten fired that Monday.
I believe that to this day.
Yeah, and they finally woke up and they dominated the second half, and of course Urban in 4 years is 3-1. So it's been a great run for Florida, especially I think for people like you and I who live through some of this absolute misery. Vince Dooley, certainly the 73 game was great, but they turn right around, lose the next one on a 2-point conversion. 75 team was one of the best teams I've ever seen in Florida. And they hit the tight end around pass. Yeah. And it was just like they were stacking up one after another. These great Georgia memories and these miserable Florida
76,
memories.
You know, we had them down at the half. I think it was 27-13. And then we went for it on fourth down there. But
you probably don't refer to it as fourth and done, do you?
No, I don't. I never have.
What's it been like for you? I mean, first of all, you obviously had a great relationship with Steve. Won him the Heisman Trophy. We all know that.
No.
Yeah, you got him the Heisman. I'm telling people that. But and then all of a sudden that one night when you're sitting down in Crescent Beach and you called me to make sure my wife was okay because we didn't know where she was for a while. And after you hung up, Steve says, you better sit down and have yourself a beer because there's something I got to tell you.
No, they told when we were supposed to go out to dinner with him, and he called and said, we're going to come over and have a drink with you. And so we'll go from there. So I said, okay. So when they walked in the door, Jerry, first thing that happened was Jerry told my wife, Sylvia, she said, Sylvia, you better sit down, you better have a beer. And so Sylvia sat down. And she said, no, you better get a beer. So I said, I'll get her one, I'll get her a beer. So then I sat down. The minute I sat down at our dining room table with Steve, without saying a word, he said, here, read this, make some suggestions, make some changes. I started reading it. I was in shock.
I bet.
And so, then we started trying to talk him out of it for about the next hour, and it didn't work. And he wanted to call Jeremy right away, and I said, no, let's wait till in the morning. It's too late to do anything tonight.
Right.
Because I was hoping we could talk him out of it, but he made up his mind.
And that letter is that he wrote is in your book, one of your many books, The Vault, which is a great book. I used it a lot for research, a lot. And it's just a well-done book as well. And you've got another one out, Florida, Georgia, written with my man, Lauren Smith.
Lauren Smith.
What do you got, Lauren?
Yep, Lauren, who's a great guy. I've known since the early 60s, and he wrote the Georgia portion. I wrote the Florida. It's like I was supposed to do the top 20 or 25 Florida wins in the series. He did the top 20 or 25 Georgia. But the publisher, you've dealt with publishers.
I've dealt with them.
They wanted, we want to go back chronologically to earlier years. So a lot of the top wins aren't in there.
You could probably do 20 from the last 25 years. Yeah. Especially with so many for Florida. But,
that's right.
What would be 93 is your favorite game? Is there one win though that stands out for you? Is that it, or is there maybe like 91 when it meant you were going to win the SEC? Probably.
Oh, I like the win in '67 that you mentioned. Georgia had dominated us in the football game, and they were up 16-7. There was only about 8 minutes to go in the game, and we really couldn't get much going. And we happened to get a little drive going, and Larry Rentz threw a pass out to Richard Trapp on the press box side of the field, and Trapp made 8 Georgia tacklers miss him. He went clear across the field. Bill Castells, the Times Union Sports there. I think he said something like he turned and twisted and did everything but the cha-cha across the field. And he did, and it got to be 16-14. And then the defense bowed their backs and their necks and everything else and stopped Georgia. And we got another quick drive. Trapp made another great play on a catch and got it down there. And as the clock ran out, Wayne Barfield, who was from Georgia, from Albany.
All right, Shade Tree,
yeah, kicked a field goal to win 17-16. It didn't win a conference championship, but it was just a really, really exciting game and the best run I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was amazing. The one Nat Moore had against Auburn, again on a screen pass, ranks right up there as well. But, you know, the funny thing is we can talk about great wins, bad losses for Florida. There was one game that left everybody not knowing how to feel, and that was 69. When you had the tie game and everything, Florida lines up for a last-second field goal, bad snap, bad hold, bad kick. Yeah. You couldn't have done it any worse.
Yeah, that was, I think, coming off, we just sort of didn't recover from that fiasco at Auburn.
Yeah, the 9-interception game.
Yeah.
And that's the record John Reese will probably have forever.
I would hope so.
Nationally, everywhere.
Right.
All right, that's going to do it for our segment with Norm. He'll be back to play either or with us in just a bit. But right now, we're going to do the list.
Wing Zone was started in Gainesville and has over 70 locations across the country. Our Wing Zone has been recognized by the Wing Zone Corporation in 2007 as Franchise of the Year. Call 352-331-6011 or visit us online at wingzone.com.
All right, it's time for our latest list. And if you're just tuning in, you're wondering what I'm doing. It's Halloween. I'm dressed up, man. I'm Dr. Football. And especially since Kelsey's not going to be able to go trick-or-treating. Yeah, I know, because she's going to Florida, Georgia. Oh, that's not bad. We decided to have me dressed up so she can watch her daddy look like a buffoon, which is pretty much every day anyway. All right, the list this week, the 5 things I almost dressed up as on Halloween. Number 5, the Redskins offense. I was going to do that, but then I couldn't drive anywhere. So I decided to go ahead and pass on that one. Have you seen them play? They're awful. Not only are they terrible, but now they've got Sherm Lewis calling the plays. Jim Zorn looks lost. It's embarrassing. Might be the worst situation we have in the NFL right now, unless you want to count the Oakland Raiders as being an NFL team. Number 4, Terrence Cody. Mount Cody, of course, the Alabama defensive tackle, because I figure I'm one of the few guys who can fit into his clothes. Number 3, an SEC referee. Yeah, here's where you insert the obvious jokes. I couldn't find a cane, couldn't find the dark sunglasses, seeing eye dog was out, so I couldn't come as an SEC referee. Number 2 was Bobby Bowden. We were so close to pulling the trigger on this, decided not to, and his thing was going to be he was going to read his list, and his list was going to be like this. Yeah, this is Coach Bowden, and I want to, this is my list of my 5 favorite Florida State players on this team. Number 5 is number 4. He's really good, I think. Number 3 is number 2, and number 4 is number 19. Just didn't want to be that mean, so we would never do anything that cruel. And number 1, I was going to come as Tim Tebow. I figure I put a little eye black on, write something on it, like Dr. Football, get a little gel in the hair, shave the mustache off, lift some weights. I look just like him, wouldn't I? Yeah, exactly. All right, that's going to do it for the list. We're going to come back. Norm Carlson, or is it Tim Tebow? I can't remember. Is going to join me for our next segment of Either Or.
Check out the Pat Dooley Show, brought to you by Wing Zone. Remember, when it comes to your next football party, Wing Zone has you covered. Now offering convenient delivery. Call 352-377-2473 or go online to wingzone.com to order today.
All right, welcome back to our latest edition of Either Or, along with Norm Carlson. Tim Tebow. He's dressed as Norm Carlson today. Norm, I'm going to give you 4 questions, and you give me an either or. Florida, Georgia, on the campuses in the Georgia Dome or in the city of Jacksonville?
Oh, that's easy. City of Jacksonville. I love that game there. As I said, first one I ever saw was there in '52. Love that game.
Yeah, I kind of turned back. I used to be a guy who, I like Athens. Athens is one of the great towns in the SEC, and I always wanted to go there every other year. But as you said earlier, then it's just another SEC game.
That's right.
It's not Florida, Georgia. It's not the WLOCP. Are you allowed to say that? I don't know if you're not allowed to, but I can. It is. It's something special, and it really is something that I think as I get older, I enjoy more. Even though I'm still going to be dealing with issues with traffic, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to still be dealing with, I think one of my favorite Florida-Georgia stories was Furman Bisher and Louis Grizzard.
Yeah.
You remember that, right?
Oh, do I.
Did they get on you that day?
Oh, I saw Grizzard coming down the press box with smoke coming in his ears. And I said, oh, my gosh, what's happened now?
Well, they actually they couldn't get into parking, and they wouldn't let them park because the cops used to let all their buddies park.
Yeah, it was full.
So they just left their rental car out in the middle of the road running.
Yeah.
To that, we're out.
Yeah.
They weren't happy.
No.
Number 2, better play. Richard Trapp's catch and run in 1967, which we talked about, or Ricky Bell, or Kerwin Bell to Ricky Nattiel, or Ricky Bell. He played for Southern Cal in 1984.
Well, that's a tough choice. I've already said Richard Trapp's run, but that play, too, was an unbelievable play, one of the best in our history.
Yeah, one of the great things when you watch the video is the Georgia cheerleaders are right at the end of the Nattiel run into the end zone, and they're meh. Number 3, better player, Tim Tebow or Herschel Walker. This is the debate this week.
Boy, it's such, it's two eras, it's two different types. He's a quarterback and Herschel's a running back. That's a very, very tough. I'm a Gator, so I'm going to say Tim for that reason
can't
alone.
blame you for that.
But also, I think the role he's in as quarterback and leader of the football team, I think he's the better.
There's been some interesting points made, mostly from Georgia writers, about Herschel. They were 33-3 when he was there. He didn't have the cast of characters around him maybe that Tim has.
Yeah.
And somebody made a great point. I use it in my notes, duly noted. Herschel had 5 bowl touchdowns that don't count, which I don't understand why the NCAA couldn't instruct the sports information departments to go look it up and just add him in. Yeah. But the one thing about Tim is he's a quarterback. He's not a running back, and he's had 49 touchdowns. That's an amazing stat.
Incredible feat.
It is. Number 4, you're having dinner at the Beachcomber in St. Augustine. Who would you rather have as your companion, August 7 or Ray Goff?
Well, he's Ray Goff. I like Ray Goff. I really do.
A lot of Florida fans liked him too when he was here.
Well, yeah, I mean, we beat him, but I got to know him. I was fortunate enough to go in the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame with Ray in the same class. And so I got to see a lot of him that weekend and got to know him. And he's a heck of a nice guy.
Plus,
really nice.
He's not going to spill water all over the table, and slobber all over your. But you do like the Beachcomber, I know that.
I love the Beachcomber.
Yeah, so he's a St. Augustine guy like me. Now we both kind of adopted St. Augustine as our town.
Absolutely.
But we love it. Norm, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Pat. Enjoyed it.
We'll be right back and see what's on Dr. Football's email bag next. No, Mr. Kiffin, I'm not finding a conspiracy anywhere in here. All right, we got a special guest here today to give us the Dr. Football email question. That's Robbie Andrew, who's going to bring it in right now. Wow, Robbie, dude, you need to get a day off, bud. All right, Dr. Football. Last night I read SI.com, and all 6 of their gurus picked Alabama to beat Florida and make it to the national championship game. This morning, while still pondering how sad that would be, I walked by a bowl of Halloween candy and picked up a bag of M&Ms. I opened it, and out came 9 blue, 9 orange, and 2 red M&Ms. Is this a sign I have nothing to fear? Was this a coincidence, or were the M&Ms really speaking to me and telling me to quit worrying? Sincerely, Gator fan in Texas. Well, what they could have been saying to you is Auburn's going to beat Alabama, huh? Orange and blue. They were the same colors. If you're listening to M&M's pods, you're in trouble, okay? But I appreciate the email anyway. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if Florida and Alabama are even going to play. Likely, but we don't know. Watch that Alabama-LSU game next week, and then you'll know a lot more. That's going to do it for the 8th edition of the Pat Dooley Show. I want to thank Norm Carlson, Robbie Andrews' hand, as well as my wife, who got the get-up for me. She's my costume designer for Dr. Football. And especially to Tricia Coyne, who came in today to work after getting her wisdom teeth taken out, and does such a wonderful job of making me look mediocre. Again, until next time, Pat Dooley, the Gainesville Sun, so long from the Sunshine State.